And welcome once again to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. Joining me is Juan Zarate. He's our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you as always.
Bob, it's an honor to be with you.
So let's talk about the man who will take the helm at the Pentagon, Ash Carter, if he's confirmed. What is on his plate?
Well, Ash Carter, very well recognized a professor, knows the Pentagon well, has a multitude of challenges, both internally and externally. But let's talk about five. First, he's going to have to deal with the war theaters. Like it or not, Afghanistan and Iraq still remain on the Secretary of Defense's plate in terms of determining our force posture. Are we going to have more boots on the ground to deal with the threat of ISIS? What happens with the drawdown of our troops in Afghanistan post-2016? Are we going to leave residual forces to train and equip as well as to fight a counterterrorism mission? So he has to deal with ongoing wars and the questions of where we put our men and women in harm's way. So that's going to be critical, and his voice is going to be important in that debate.
Those are huge questions, but you say there are others beyond that the Senate's going to want to know about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Second, the Senate has focused mightily on the question of the closure of Guantanamo. The president has said openly he wants it closed. He's trying to transfer detainees out. The Secretary of Defense has to certify, because they are in Department of Defense custody, he has to certify those transfers. And so in some ways, Ash Carter falls right into the heart of the Guantanamo debate because the Secretary of Defense has to provide those assurances and certifications if any of the individuals are transferred, and frankly has to be part of the architecture as to what the closure ultimately looks like.
But he's got some cover with the Republican Senate. I mean, they're maybe not going to press as hard.
No, I think that's right, but he's still going to be at the center of that policy debate and storm because you recall Secretary Hagel in some ways chafed at that process, was slower than the administration would have liked, and it's going to be a question as to whether or not Ash Carter is an accelerant to that closure or if he's going to be a more cautious voice like Secretary Hagel was.
Okay. Item 3, what would that be?
Item 3, China. How do we posture ourselves with respect to what's happening in the East? The growth of the Chinese power in the region, militarily in particular. China now is unveiling its second aircraft carrier, is beginning to stretch its muscles. We've talked about the Chinese dragon burying its teeth in the South China Sea, for example. What is our force posture, and how do we relate to China as the main competitor on the global stage in the future militarily? That's going to be very important.
Okay, and then the last two.
Last two, quickly. He has to worry about cyber. A key question.
That's a big one.
A huge one. I mean, all these issues are huge. A key question for the Secretary of Defense is how do we posture ourselves to defend Department of Defense systems as well as the defense contractor base against the cyber espionage and infiltration? And oh, by the way, how do we posture ourselves in an environment where cyber tools and warfare are proliferating, not just with state actors, but non-state actors? How does the country think about this? Cyber Command falls under his control. The NSA falls under DoD command, and so he's got a major role to play in where we go on cyber defense and cybersecurity. And then finally, the budget. The big issue in recent years has been the sequester and the effects that that's had on the Department of Defense, its personnel, its systems, its S&T, its research and development. And so he's going to, I think, play a very important role in the debate about what the Pentagon's budget looks like and where we're investing for the future. We need to be investing for our capabilities, not for tomorrow or the next year, but for 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road to make sure we have not just the right personnel and the right training, but the right type of equipment and technology that keeps us ahead of the enemies.
Chuck Hagel never really had the confidence of this White House. Is this going to change that? Will Ash Carter have the confidence of the administration, do you think? And what does that mean in the last 2 years of a presidency?
I think it's hard coming in at this stage of the presidency, in part because it's hard to make major muscle movements. And so what you have is somebody who can manage the Pentagon, who understands it, who is going to have the confidence of the White House, but he may not be able to deviate that far afield from the parameters of policy coming out of the White House. And so he's going to be a very good Secretary of Defense, but he's not going to be a revolutionary Secretary of Defense. And that's less to do with who Ash Carter is and more to do with when he's coming in and the constraints he's under.
Juan, thanks as always.
Thank you, Bob.
And thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We'll see you next time.